Hello there, everyone. I'm used to starting off with association chat graphics and association chat news, but this time it's different. This time, instead of welcoming you to association chat or welcoming you to a guest that I'm going to interview, I'm actually presenting something on behalf of Tecker International. Many of you know that I serve I have many different hats, right? But I also serve as a senior consultant for Tecker International. And today's topic is actually really, really important all the time. If you're an association, you need to be thinking about this all the time. But especially over the past year and a half, I think that the topic of the value proposition, what kind of value you are providing to your members and to your stakeholders, has become something that has become even more important, right? I'm going to approach this discussion as a sort of discussion, less than a webinar. Yesterday I had the good fortune to be able to speak to a group specifically about the value proposition. I was talking about understanding, engaging, and satisfying members and customers. And this was created for the Healthcare Associations Leadership League. And it was a wonderful program. We had it was an hour and a half, and we were talking primarily about value proposition. And the thing that just kept coming up is how important it is to be curious about your members and about your stakeholders and about your mission. Because in a time of uncertainty, which we are certainly in, people have a lot of questions. They ask a lot of questions, and even if they've been committed to your organization in the past, they want to reassess and figure out, is it actually meeting, serving the purpose that they initially wanted it to serve, meeting their needs as they initially saw them? Is the ROI on their time and their energy and their money really there? So today, that's what we're going to talk about. A few of you reached out to ask me how to log into this. I see that several of you are logged in, and able to watch. So if you're at YouTube, you should be able to go ahead and comment as we go along. If anyone feels like they want to jump on, what I would like to do is approach this in a way that we can talk for the first 30 minutes about the value proposition, what it is, how it's changed, things we need to think about as far as what our members might be expecting. And then we'll move into, if anyone wants to jump on with me, I can share the link and you can log on in a little bit. Bruce says this is an important topic. There is a lot of competition for the attention of members and prospective members. Bruce, you're absolutely correct. And actually, there's a lot of competition for all of our attention right now, especially as more of us find ourselves inside, logging in. There are 1,000,001 things to even, view and learn and discuss when we're looking at our virtual options as well. So, maybe in the beginning when we were thinking that we needed to find a replacement for our in-person meetings so that we could create more community and create more learning opportunities for folks. If we got to the point where we could create a virtual or even a hybrid option, now it's how are we going to continue to compete as everyone gets into the game and they get over the learning curve and they begin to find all of these new tools at new price points that make it a lot more accessible to more people. So I have an answer for that. I don't know if it's the right answer, but I think it's a good answer because associations are weird. I mean, that's the one thing that whenever my colleagues and I are talking about, associations, one thing we can pride ourselves on as associations is that we're just weird, right? We're weird because we're set up unlike any other organization that's out there. And then a lot of times what's highlighted is that associations are risk averse and they're unwieldy, and it's very difficult to maneuver and innovate the way that we want to. And in recent history, up until COVID, that was kind of the big push was innovation, design thinking. Let's think about how we can be at the forefront of our industries, for our organizations, for our associations. And these are valuable, valiant efforts to be doing that. But at a time like now, at a time like the present, when we are suddenly thrust into this position where it's more about who can I trust? Is this going to be a reliable organization? Do I actually believe in what this organization is doing? What are they doing for me? Is this in alignment with my own values and what it is that I was hoping to get from this organization in the first place? And do I actually feel like I'm part of something that's bigger than myself? These are some of the key components that can fit into a member's thinking about why they belong to the organizations, to the associations that they do. So one thing I wanted to do is I want to go ahead and bring up something from a book that I don't want to call it an oldie but a goodie, but I'm going to reference several materials, several books today, and one of them is The Will to Govern Well. Okay, so I had to bring up The Will to Govern Well because not just because it's a book that several of my colleagues at Tecker International wrote, but also because it does have this really great explanation of what, an approach to the value proposition. And there are the 3 C's. This is sort of the idea behind the value proposition for an association today. And the first has to do with commitment. That commitment is often the thing that separates associations from other types of organizations. The commitment to the mission, the commitment to something that will lead to improvements over time, that a group of people have collectively decided that they want to work towards together. That is unique, that is different, and that is something that associations are able to provide in a way that you don't often see in for-profits and that you don't often see elsewhere. So that's one of those special things that can make an association weird, along with the stakeholders, the board and the members and the customers, all being part of the same organization. But that commitment piece is so important. When we divide up and look at the value proposition and we think, okay, in which area can I look for improvements for my association? Certainly figuring out, is my association tied to the mission and communicating that to the mission the best way that it could? And by the way, has that mission changed in the time since so much change has happened in the world? Now, most of the time we would say, no, the mission hasn't changed because the mission is the mission organization exists. However, the one caveat is in times of extreme change, societal change, we are living in an age where we are facing change on a personal level. Our members are all having to make personal decisions and changes in their own lives, and also at a social level, and on the world stage, how we collaborate and work with each other and meet and do things. There are a lot of changes that are happening right now. And so you're all familiar with that. We're trying to navigate that. But that's all to say that it comes back to looking at commitment and saying, Are we still connected to our mission? Are we communicating about that connection? Has our mission changed? Do we need to ask those questions? And what do our members think about that? Are we communicating about that mission, that commitment that our organization has in an effective way? Are we showing how we've been there over time? And that's a really important key. The second piece of the value proposition, from if we look at it through the lens of the will to govern well, is content, but not content as the newsletter and your marketing speak and all of this stuff, your marketing materials necessarily. It's divided up into things like advocacy. It's those tangibles that it's the ROI that someone can usually provide to say, this is why I belong to this organization. It may not be the heart, but it is a logical why. And that's because there's research, knowledge, insight, information that puts you at the forefront of your career, your industry, that helps you to move forward. Advocacy falls into this too, which advocacy is so often the unsung hero, but advocacy has most definitely been the hero for associations during a time when a lot of the value that comes from an association is in these different industries, organizations, associations fighting for them on Capitol Hill. Yes, and Hillary says, I'm going to throw this on here. Yes, that is content. I like to say that content is how our work is manifested in the world. Yes, and Hillary Marsh is my favorite content strategist in the world, so that actually, I should have left that up there longer. I absolutely adore Hillary, and I think she's brilliant. So thank you for that, Hillary. So content is really important. Evaluating in the value proposition, how are you providing value through your content, and have those needs changed? This is obviously a great time for cutting out maybe legacy programs and products that have outlived their usefulness. If you ever needed an argument for cutting it out, here it is. But the other thing we need to think about is, are we listening to our members? Are we listening to our customers about what it is that their needs are now and how they've changed? And being able to adapt to that and pull ourselves together as association executives so that we can provide that to our association members, that is critical. The third piece is talking about community. All right, so with community, obviously online community is a big deal to me, but with community, that's one of those things where we think about when people say it's the people that you meet in an association. It is when I go to the annual meeting, I make those connections, and that's where I might get my next job. That's where I meet my peers. That's where I meet my colleagues, and I'm able to, sort of grow in my career because I'm around other people who can be beneficial to me in one way or another. And we're all in this together. We're all belonging to something that's bigger than ourselves. And that's feeding into that very human desire to belong to something that's bigger than yourself. Now, community is an area that is getting a lot of attention, and it's also a word that I think is being thrust upon everyone, whether it's related to events or it's related to online community, and with good reason, because when associations could no longer easily or safely bring people together in person for, say, an annual meeting or a trade show, then the question became, how are we going to foster those really important relationships when someone maybe belonged to the association just so they could have that yearly meeting where they could touch base, meet people, build those contacts that were so critical to their careers, to their jobs, to their sales, all of that. And for association executives who maybe found that their associations were wanting and not providing as much, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think it's slowing down my video here. For those association executives who maybe saw that the community piece of things was wanting when the in-person events went away, there's a lot of grasping to try to figure out how can we cultivate those relationships throughout the year when people are not able to meet in person necessarily. There are also these expectations from a lot of people, a lot of members who maybe found that they were able to quickly find new places online to get information and connect with other people. And they're now looking at their association saying, why can't you do this for me? I'm expecting you to do this for me. How are you connecting me to other people better, the people I want to connect with through the association? This is some of what I've been hearing from different association executives, different people in the industry, certainly from the event side, but then also people who are just trying to figure out, how do we make membership mean something and have it be valuable for our members when we've taken away a key component that they thought was of extreme value to them. And so Bruce, actually, who's on here, and I'm going to bring up Bruce's name and his previous comment. Bruce did a wonderful 21 and 21 talk about how you can get value from sponsorships through your events or provide value to sponsors through events. You will have to go onto Association Chat and look at the playlist for 21 and 21 talks and listen to Bruce's talk. He did an amazing job and really provides some valuable information there. But yeah, so as you're looking at community as your third, component of the value proposition, you have to ask yourself, okay, how are we connecting our members to each other? Not just to us, not just to the headquarters, not just to the association, but how are we helping them connect with each other? And that is hard. That is hard work. It's much easier to throw people in a room with coffee or cocktails and say, have at it. Good luck. Don't be scared. Fight your imposter syndrome and carry business cards than it is to say, okay, we have this group of people who are all interested in being connected for one reason or another. How are we going to connect them if they can no longer be in the same room together? We have digital tools, but as we've all seen, those can be used to greater or lesser effect and effectiveness. And so how can we use those in a way that's actually going to be meaningful to people? That's a challenge. All right, so Nick Hare, I'm going to bring this up. Nick Hare says, this conversation makes me think of the similarities to higher education and Ryan Craig's book, College Disrupted, the Great Unbundling of Higher Education. It's interesting, Nick, when, and Nick Hare from Q Career, you should definitely connect with him if you haven't already. Look him up. All of these people who are commenting are just really phenomenal people and good contacts to have. This is an antiquated reference in your Rolodex's contact list. So yeah, Nick's point is well received here because higher education. I listened to someone from MIT recently, a statistician, giving some information to the International Hoteliers Society of Hoteliers, something like that. When I was speaking in Boston, and they they're quite aware that there are changes afoot in destinations and in the way people travel. And one of the interesting side notes that statistician shared was that at MIT, where he also teaches, that they were experiencing changes in higher education that weren't going to go back. That there is this expectation that there's going to be less travel for the people who are actually part of MIT that teach there, but also that there have to be, better offerings and probably priced differently for people who are participating online, or at least they need to be able to change the pricing in connection to what they're offering as far as education. So there's so many changes. Higher education, fascinating thing. So we've gotten through the 3 C's of the value proposition. I'm so used to asking other people questions and then being quiet that it's strange to talk to this particular group and to continue to go on. But I promise I won't wear you out. I said I'd talk for about 30 minutes, and then if anyone wants to join me, you can. So all of these things that go into the value proposition, when you're looking at the commitment and the content, and when you're looking at community, all of these things go into making this overall brand of what the experience with that organization is. And so your association that's providing this experience, is providing this value, probably in one of those areas is looking at this tension, where can we improve? What are the expectations here? Something has to change. If you're not feeling that, then kudos to you, because that's unusual. But also I'd say, if you're not feeling that and you're listening to this, then you're already doing something right. And that's continuing to learn and be curious. So ultimately, that curiosity has to be there so that you are looking into what your members are looking for through qualitative and quantitative research. Yes, talk with Hillary more about that. And through figuring out how to design offerings that actually provide greater value. Now, I promised in my write-up, and I didn't promote this very much, and I was explaining to a couple of people why I didn't, which is that I kind of wanted this to be low-key, just in case it was just me talking to myself, that I was going to record it and then push it out later. But a couple of the examples that I said I was going to share, I wanted to share with you today because I think that they're really good. And the first is, when we look at ways that organizations can improve upon their value propositions and see change, see how it positively impacts their memberships. I'm always on the lookout, whether it's through association chat or through the groups that I talk to, for examples. What are examples of associations that have modified one aspect or another of their value proposition, and it's really had a good impact? And I specifically want to know who is out there, what associations are out there that have done this during COVID, in a time when there's this question of, what does engagement mean? Are they really finding value in the organization, or is all of this engagement superfluous and not really providing long-lasting proof of long-lasting value and membership and retention and all of these things that we really want from our members, want them to experience? So one of those examples, ACHP, I heard about the Alliance of Community Health Plans, okay? The Alliance of Community Health Plans shared that the piece that they were able to work on and have a positive, truly positive impact, and I think a lot of associations can benefit from hearing this part, is that they had an online community, but the activity has greatly increased since during COVID, they needed to have a place that was their own, that was owned by them, that was able to provide value to the members, where the members knew that they could go and get the most up-to-date information and have the most up-to-date conversations about COVID-related research and news that they needed to learn and talk about and really sort of use that information to figure out how they were going to apply it. And so that's the Alliance of Community Health Plans, ACHP, that did that. And it was that ability. And I asked the question point blank, did this mean that it improved your online community? Because a lot of associations have online communities, but, maybe they're active, maybe they're not, For an association to be trusted during a time where there is great distrust, and to be able to provide a safe place where you can get reliable information quickly and to connect with other people who have the same types of interests and concerns and problems that you do. And to know that that organization is doing that for you as a member and bringing people together, that is the best example of offering value through community during a time when people can't get together in person. Well, it's a great example, right? It's one of the best examples that I've heard because it was able to provide new value that hadn't been there before. Maybe they had the value to a lesser extent, but it was this specific area that they could go to talk about the COVID-related issues. That was locked down to members only, that provided the greatest value to that membership. So that's a really good example of how an association has adapted and been able to provide something that's been of value to their membership. Another example, the National PACE Association. The National PACE Association shared with me that they've been nimble with content, in that what they were able to do was they went ahead and they immediately jumped into doing the research stuff. They called up members and they talked with them about what their needs were. And what the person from the National PACE Association said was that he said, if we hadn't reached out to them and had those conversations, and if we weren't so small, maybe we wouldn't have been able to be nimble enough to be able to change quickly and be able to offer up new types of materials. And for them, what that meant developing new types of newsletters and reporting on new information that their members specifically wanted, that they weren't concerned about before, that wasn't really on their radar before, or at least not to that extent. And those are just a couple of examples where it's looking at both at one or the other, the content, the community pieces of the value proposition, where those associations were able to then, up their game and provide greater value. And apparently that has meant true engagement, greater engagement with their members, and greater retention, which is what everyone's really, I think after the what do we do about the annual meeting question is then also how do we retain our members, because we need to provide value. So being able to do that has definitely been helpful for them. So I'm talking your ears off, I know. Does anyone have an interest in trying to jump on with me? So I'm going to share a little bit more as I'm going along. I don't want to take up too much of your time. But what I wanted to do, and I'm going to put the information about if you want to join me or talk with me in the chat here. I know that this is different than, like a typical sort of webinar, but you know what? I think it's better this way because we can talk and interact. And if you have any questions, you can just put them in there. The important thing about talking about the value proposition is that we need to be asking those questions. We need to be looking at how we as associations can only grow in our weirdness by standing apart from all of the competition that we have online through for-profits, all of these organizations that have suddenly figured out, oh, we can provide learning, online learning, we can provide connection through these private networking groups. What do associations have that's different than that? Why should we stand apart? Well, we have that commitment piece. We have that commitment to solving a problem over time. We also, by the way, not for nothing, are supposed to be working at something that's supposed to be of public good. Like the whole reason that we're supposed to be able to have, as an association, this special tax status is that we're doing something that the government can't do for themselves, right? And so how are we making things better? How are we committed to a mission that people can believe in over time? That's not insignificant, I think maybe the old idea of it just being have a firm handshake and meet someone face to face, and this is what society expects us to do, that may be past. But the idea of coming together to solve a problem certainly isn't. And the goal of having an association solving big problems for the world, for the country, for an industry, there is still a great need for that. And that is why we exist. So if anybody wants to join me, I haven't seen anyone jump on yet. Finally, I wanted to leave you with some questions to ask yourself. Through Tecker International's YouTube channel, you'll see a webinar that I did maybe last year or earlier this year with Michael Anderson, and we talked about the business model canvas. In the business model canvas, when you're looking at the value proposition, there are a number of questions that you can ask yourself, and the business model canvas is good for every association to go through. If you want to learn more about it, you can walk through it in that webinar. But I thought I might ask a few of those questions for you to think about right now as we move into our later in our days. The first is, what value do we deliver to the member or our customer? What value do we deliver? Now, we can look through the list of benefits that we have, right? But that doesn't quite do it, because we have to ask the question of, how valuable is this? Do people really care about the newsletter? Do they read it? Do we know that they read it? If they don't, why not? If they don't, do they still have value in it? I might receive the Harvard Business Review and only crack it open. I'll go ahead and admit it. I'll only crack it open and read a couple of articles. I don't read it front to back. I still get value out of it. I don't need to read every article. Here's a secret about community too. Online community, when you're looking at Facebook groups or something like that, is there value there? Sure there is. If you think about what's one of the longest running communities you can think of, look at religions and stuff. I mean, and this sounds sacrilegious, I don't mean it to, but up and going to church, it was once a week. I don't know why Facebook wants me there 7 days a week, but I don't think that you're failing if people aren't logging in every second of every day. I think that if you have meaningful engagement and there's value there and there's trust there, and that you're offering something that they can't get elsewhere, or at least not of that high quality, that you still have something that's worthwhile, right? And I think Hillary has this great point here. It seems to me that, like brand, value is the mind of the member. Yeah, it's the mind of the member. So here we go. We've thought that associations were sole source for members. Maybe no longer true. Members may get good content from other sources, such as members, exhibitors, sponsors, trade publications, for-profit expos. Yeah. I mean, and that is true, actually, Bruce, and we need to know that. I think as associations, look, advocacy, no one can actually do this the same way that associations can. Sure, you can have for-profits that pay for lobbyists and stuff like that. But the role that associations play in this, and that they stick with it over the long haul, and that's for some greater good, for a group of members who all seemingly are after the same goal or this continuous improvement. That's special for associations that I think as associations we need to double down on and really, really focus on the fact that we have that, but we need to get better at bringing people together and believing in that bigger overall, something bigger than themselves kind of feeling, that belonging, where we can effectively work together to solve a problem, even if it's just sending in our membership dues to know that we're making some kind of a difference. Otherwise, if it's just one more subscription, if it's just one more, I have memberships to things that are not associations. My subscribe and save in Amazon's a great example. And we don't want to be like that. For years, we've heard be like Amazon, maybe in providing tailored experience and customized experience. But if we're like Amazon, we're not like we need to be ourselves. We need to be the very best associations offering what we offer that we can be. Maybe we can rise to the occasion to be more technologically advanced. Maybe we can get savvier about the way that we communicate in our marketing. Maybe we can get smarter about the questions we ask so that we're able to provide greater value to our members. But I don't want to say that we want to be like any other company right now, because we're not companies, right? We are associations. We're associations. We're supposed to, and we are. In most cases, we're providing value through being trusted and being there and being able to be there for the long haul. We have to be smart about that, though. We have to be smart about the way that we communicate it. And that's the whole point of the value proposition, is figuring out when those values change, when we either need to think our mission or check in with our membership to figure out if we're all doing what we want to do together. A lot of times in industries, especially, as things change so quickly, trying to be the association for all things ends up hurting an association because, you can't really be all things to all people. And actually, here's another book, Race for Relevance. I don't know if you've picked up the latest copy. This is the 10th anniversary edition. And I do have, for Association Chat, I have Harrison and Mary that are going to come on and talk with me in September. And I'm really, really looking forward to it, because in this book, they talk about one of the main ways that, one of the 5 ways, radical changes that associations are supposed to make, is they're supposed to be looking at focusing on their segments, right? Focusing on how to serve certain specific segments better, instead of trying to, serve all people in every way. All right, so I feel like, I also said that I was going to reference a few books. I did have another one that I wanted to talk about. This one is a little bit older, Creating Customer Evangelists. This is by Ben McConnell and Jackie Huba. What they do is, I think that this actually really applies to associations as well. I've always thought very highly of this book. It was published in 2003, so it's not ancient, but so Creating Customer Evangelists, it talks about the way that you can go through and not dissimilar to the way we talk about creating these exceptional experiences for members. It talks about going through and how you're able to create these customer evangelists. So think about it as member evangelists. And if you have a chance, go through and take a look at it. It's inspirational because similar to the value proposition, I think it's great frameworks that allow us to create better questions, right? You know, what value do we deliver to the customer? Which one of our customers' problems are we helping to solve? What are the new pain points for your members? Are they the same as they were before, or have they changed? Which customer needs are we satisfying? Which job are we helping the customer get done? What bundles of products and services are we offering each customer segment? These are questions that you might go through when you're doing business, when you're thinking about your value proposition, and as you're going through and thinking about creating evangelists out of those members, the people who are loyal because they believe in what you do and they want to see your organization succeed, but they want to succeed together. All of these are great examples. These books, The Will to Govern Well, I'll say that, you know, Race for Relevance, The 5 Radical Changes for Associations, and Creating Customer Evangelists. So that's been KiKi's book club for today. That's also all I have to really say for right now about value proposition. And I am thankful to everyone who showed up. I'm sorry if it was a little confusing about finding where this discussion was going to happen. If you would like to talk about this more, maybe have a group discussion, you know, I don't know. I would be interested in talking about it too, so reach out. If you're listening to this later and you think, you know what, KiKi, I think you need to also talk about this in addition to it, let me know, because for sure I'm always open to your ideas. So, hey, yeah, Hillary says she has that book. It's awesome. It is awesome. And actually those folks are awesome too. Well, I don't know which book you're talking about, Ben McConnell and Jackie Huba's, or Harrison and Myers, or Harrison and Myers, Harrison and Mary's, and I would say The Will to Govern Well, there's 4 different people from Tecker International who did this. So, Glenn, Lee, Paul, and Bud Crouch. So anyway, all of these are great. Thank you, Bruce, who said the association value prop can be aggregating content for all sources in the context of the association's mission and needs of its members. Some associations believe only they can produce content. Oh, yeah. And because he was responding to Hillary's comment on curating and analyzing content from other sources, truly not in an AI sense, very important. Because if we're relying on just AI, we might totally miss the mark, right? There's other value there. But it's also a way for associations to provide value. Yes, about that book. Thank you. Moira, who said, got here late and we'll rewind it in a minute. That's okay, Moira. You know I love you. And Kathy was saying, thank you. This is great. Look, I am so thankful that you were all here. I hope you got value out of talking about the value proposition. I clearly could talk about this forever. And this is sort of the tame version. You can see why this went for like an hour and a half yesterday with other people talking. But what I would encourage all of you to do, and I know there are a lot of smarties who are listening to this and who probably already do this, but if you're like me, it never hurts to hear it again. Just whenever you think that you are resting back and that you know for sure that you understand what the member is thinking and feeling, that is exactly when you should push back and start asking more questions. Because to imagine that we understand exactly, especially in a time when so much is changing around us, is a recipe, my friends, for disaster. So with that, I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Always reach out if you want to reach out. I didn't remind anyone, but you can also tweet me and connect with me on Twitter, which is how I communicate with most people these days. And thank you for joining me today. I hope that all of you stay safe. The numbers are up. The surge numbers are up pretty much everywhere that you look. But we're here and we still have jobs to do. And I think that if we go about it the right way, then we can lead at a time that can probably be of great service to many, many people. So go out there, do good work, and I will talk to you soon.